Masonry was no longer believed to have originated at the Tower of Babel. The Temple of Jerusalem was considered as the place of its birth, and Solomon, and not Nimrod, was called the first Grand Master. Accepting this legend, as we do the other legends of Masonry, which, in the language of Oliver, footnote, Historical Landmarks, Volume 1, Lecture 1, page 53, are entitled to consideration, though their authenticity may be denied and their aid rejected. We say that at the present day the Babylonish legend has assumed the present form. Before the flood, there was a system of religious instruction which, from the resemblance of its legendary and symbolic character to that of Freemasonry, has been called by some authors antediluvian Masonry. This system was preserved by Noah, and after the deluge was communicated by him to his immediate descendants. This system was lost at the time of the dispersion of mankind and corrupted by the pagans in their mysteries. But subsequently it was purified, and Freemasonry, as we now have it, was organized by the king of Israel at the time of the building of the temple. This idea is well exemplified in the American ritual, which was, we have every reason to believe, invented about the end of the last century. In this ritual, much of which is, however, being lost or becoming obsolete from the necessary imperfections of oral transmission, the aspirant is supposed to represent one who is traveling from the intellectual blindness of the profane world into the brightness of Masonry, in whose arena he expects to find the light and truth, the search for which is represented by his initiation. The symbolic journey is supposed to begin at the Tower of Babel, where, in the language of the ritual, language was confounded and Masonry lost, and to terminate at the Temple of Solomon, where language was restored and Masonry found. Hence, according to this latest form of the legend, the Tower of Babel is degraded from the prominent place which was given to it in the older forms as the birthplace of Masonry, and becomes simply the symbol of the darkness and ignorance of the profane world, as contradistinguished from the light and knowledge to be derived from an initiation into the system of speculative Masonry. But the old Masons who framed the legend of the craft, conforming more than these modern ritualists to the truth of history, when they assigned to Babylon the glory of being the original source of the sciences. So far from its being a place of intellectual darkness, we learn from the cuneiform inscriptions that the ancient Babylonians and their copyists, the Assyrians, were in possession of a wonderful literature. From the ruins of Babylon, Nineveh, and other ancient cities of the plain of Shinar, tablets of terracotta have been excavated, inscribed with legends in cuneiform characters. The interpretation of this once unknown alphabet and language was yielded to the genius and the labors of such scholars as Grotefend, Botta, Layard, and Rawlinson. From the fragments found at Koyunjik, the modern Arabic name for the site of Nineveh, the late Mr. George Smith conjectured that there were in the royal library at Nineveh over 10,000 inscribed tablets, including almost every subject in ancient literature, all of which literature was borrowed by the Assyrians from Babylonian sources. Footnote: Chaldean account of Genesis, page 21. Speaking of this literature, Smith says that at an early period in Babylonian history, a great literary development took place, and numerous works were produced which embodied the prevailing myths, religion, and science of that day, written, many of them, in a noble style of poetry, and appealing to the strongest feelings of the people on one side, or registering the highest efforts of their science on the other. These texts became the standards for Babylonian literature, and later generations were content to copy these writings instead of making new works for themselves. Footnote: Ibid, page 22. We see, therefore, that the Masons of the present day are wrong when they make Babel or Babylon the symbol of intellectual darkness, and suppose that there the light of Masonry was for a time extinguished, to be re-illuminated only at the Temple of Solomon. And, again, the legend of the craft vindicates its character and correctly clothes an historical fact in symbolic language when it portrays Babylonia, which was undoubtedly the fountain of all Semitic science and architecture, as also the birthplace of operative masonry.